Right. So when I read yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Byron. I was just going to make one quick comment, and I was going to talk about how it all goes back to the Tower of Babel, and how they established that one world government and put all the people together in working to create this Tower of Babel so that they could infiltrate back into heaven. And we know that the Lord does not support one world government, because what happened at that time? The Lord came down and separated the tongues, separated the tribes, and split the nations and split the peoples into all different lands and gave them all different languages. That right there lets us know that the Lord does not support a one world government that is united for Satan's purposes.
Wow, that is a fantastic statement, Zen. I never heard it ever phrased that way before, but it makes perfect sense.
Yes, it does.
That, what they're trying, and actually, what were they trying to do? I think it was Nimrod, who was the one that was behind all that, of course, from the seed of Canaan.
Exactly.
Cursed by Noah, and he's the one that forces this idea of we'll steal heaven. We'll get to heaven our own way. We're going up by a different path. And you're right, this signature, I've seen it, and I know it's in Dr. Joy's book, it's all about we'll do it our way. We'll become like unto God, just like what the serpent tempted Eve in chapter 3. There's nothing more or less than what has been their ongoing agenda from the very get-go, that we'll do it our way. We'll become like God, and we don't need his help. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
Now, Nimrod was a giant, was he not?
Yes, absolutely.
He was a giant.
Yeah,
in fact,
he was referred to as a mighty man, but if you really look at that very carefully and understand the key words and etymologies, you could deduce from that he was giant.
In the research that I've done, I feel that even Adam and Eve initially, the first generations of humanity were also of larger stature.
Right.
And the reason I say this is because if you do the research into Genesis, it talks about how they had 1,000-year lifespans. And it also talks about in the book of Enoch about how the Lord did not reduce the stature of man and the lifespan of man until after the flood. And it was with the sons of Noah that their lifespans were reduced from 900 years to it moved to 400 to 200, and then initially down to 120 years. But the statures of humanity and the giants before then were of much larger size, and lifespans were a lot longer prior to the flood. After the flood, the Lord reduced the giants. Their lifespans became 500 years, and humanity's lifespans became 120 years. And all the statures of both the giants and of humanity were reduced post-flood.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And the 500 years is a key because Enoch refers to it specifically in the first 15th chapter. And when they die, their spirits were cursed to remain earthbound.
Exactly.
We had made the point that these evil spirits became what we would frame today as the familiar spirits who carry on and they need something to inhabit. And by the way, they know things. And they're the ones that gain the ear of psychics and mediums. And they try to convince people they're talking to the recently deceased of the person they're referring to, but in fact they are talking to demons. And that's how that phenomena actually had its root, and it's referred to by Jesus in the New Testament. So, I think there's an awful lot of, interplay between the truth that's stated in the Bible and the little details that confirm that truth in the Ethiopian book of Enoch, and even the book of Joshua, for that matter. Otherwise, why would the book of Joshua be referred to in the book of Joshua, and why would Jude refer to the prophecy Enoch as a prophet
right.
unless there was something of truth in the Book of Enoch. And
Absolutely.
you can argue to the cows come home whether Enoch actually wrote the book or not. To me, it's a meaningless and moot question. The question is, I know from my own research that 9 of the evangelists quoted either directly or indirectly from the Book of Enoch, and we're not only talking about him as a prophet, but many other things that he had said. And I put that up on my website. So, yeah, all of this dynamic does seem to be working together. And then, of course, Greg Messina actually came up with the subtitle of our book, The Cursed Net. And Greg, just tell Zen what that subtitle was.
Well, the subtitle basically came out to being a biblical reality of the UFO and alien abduction phenomenon, and that was both by myself and Richard Stout, which we wanted to include all aspects of what was being, presented in that book. So it is a biblical reality, and we of course, that word is misused in these last days. I mean, biblical. I've interviewed some people just recently, and I tell people, if you took any information from the Bible, if the Holy Bible had any answers to any of the issues going on today, would you take it into account? And I've had a number of people tell me, I don't see any truth in the Word, in the Bible. So, unfortunately, that's a scary thought, and that's where I went back to adding Hosea 4:6 of lack of knowledge destroys my people.
Right.
It is, my people can be looked at, in 2 different ways. Of course, my people, the Jews are my people, and also he's referring to, the human race. He's referring to man, which he longs to have a relationship with. So, it's a very sad thing, Zen, to see, this, false reality being placed on people and everyone, and the majority falling for it. Most people would say, you're absolutely nuts to bring up the fact that, the government might be responsible for, dealing with having over 3,000 people, almost 3,000 people in the World Trade Center being killed for something like that, and or the hurricanes being manipulated by weather control, but that is part of the delusion, and
that's part of the control.
It's part of the control, and I believe it's going back to God actually has control of everything, but it's the point of which where the evil one wants to keep those people under control, but God allows us, and it's very difficult for people to understand this. God allows certain things to happen for a reason, but He allows us to use our own free will to come to Him, and that's the main thing we have to look at. Is He desires to have that relationship with us. The problem relies in us. It doesn't rely in God. It always goes back to us. It's our stubbornness, our ignorance. We can only blame ourselves. And, ever since, each and every one of us has grown up pointing the finger at someone else. I know each and every one of us has done that at one point in our lives. We put the responsibility or the blame on someone else. And, I'm sorry, but please, with a true heart, I just implore people to just sit down and pray about it. It's all a matter of pressing that button, and that button is coming to the Lord Jesus Christ with all their hearts and asking for that relationship, and your lives will change. I can guarantee you that. So
absolutely.